unbelievable storm takes a deadly toll on Kansas.
This is about as classic a hook echo as you are ever going to see. There is no doubt in my mind that this storm is producing a tornado.
Meteorologist has a nightmare about what happened yesterday, and in our imaginations and worst dreams, visualize what we saw in Wichita with these tornadoes.
Begin to explain the feeling. The more you feel so helpless, like you feel like you're gonna die.
One huge storm spawned tornadoes devastated the lives of people along a 43-mile path. Andover is one of the hardest hit areas, but even if you're used to dodging bullets, that still doesn't prepare you for dodging.
I think we need this. Hi guys, my name is Carly. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about the 1991 Great Plains outbreak, also known as the Wichita Andover F5 tornado. Before we jump into the content for today, I want to briefly talk about what happened the other night on the 10th going into the 11th, the prolific tornado outbreak that unfolded. I know a lot of you probably watched it live. I know a lot of you probably live in one of the affected states. What I want to do is link in the description ways in which we can help our community. If you're not able to help financially, it's okay. I think more importantly, what we can do is help spread the word to people who probably don't know about this. I'm from Tennessee. I have personally been through a nocturnal tornado, and they are absolutely horrifying. So I can't begin to imagine what these people are going through, losing their homes and losing loved ones 2 weeks before Christmas. And please remember, while this event is going to die off in the news cycle within the next week, these people are going to be picking up the pieces of their lives for months on end and will forever be marred by this event. So just remember that going into this holiday season, that some people could really use the extra help. So without further ado, this is the infamous Wichita Andover F5 tornado.
Just unreal.
Were you scared?
Oh, a little bit. Not too bad. It started moving the other way and I felt a lot better.
Wichita is the second largest city in Kansas, just behind the state's capital, which of course is Kansas City. It is also known for being the air capital of the world, and fun fact, Wichita is also the birthplace of Pizza Hut and White Castle, so we have a lot of good things happening in Wichita. Locally, Wichita is known as a decently sized metropolitan area surrounded by nice suburbs, making it a really popular area for families who are seeking a tight-knit, family-oriented community. In April of 1991, about 4,000 people are living in Andover, Kansas, which is one of those really nice suburbs just east of Wichita, and it is located in Butler County. Andover is the epitome of a close-knit community where you would kind of want to raise a family. And despite Wichita being synonymous with tornadoes, being in the heart of Tornado Alley, Andover had never actually been hit with a tornado prior to this event.
Extending from just southeast of Emporia southward is more or less.
All right, so let's talk about the dynamics for this event.
You're watching the Weather Channel. Weather you can always turn to for accurate, dependable weather forecasts 24 hours a day.
The dynamics for this event were a pretty classic textbook example of a tornado alley outbreak. Some of you may already be familiar with this, but for supercells and tornadoes to form, we need 4 main ingredients, and those are wind shear, instability, moisture, and something to lift the storms. So we start this setup with a system of low pressure. And this system of low pressure brought in a jet streak. And what the jet streak does is create a panel of fast flowing air in the upper atmosphere. And from this, we have an increased level of shear, our first main ingredient. In addition to the low pressure system, moisture from the Gulf is surging northward into the plains, which helps to create a warm and volatile atmosphere, which brings our two next main ingredients, moisture and instability. This can be seen reflected in the high CAPE values, and the CAPE values on this day were in excess of 4,000 joules per kilogram. This high CAPE value shows that these storms had extremely high amounts of energy to feed off of and could easily blow up once they initiated. Finally, we have our last component set to move into Kansas, and that is a dry line. The more dry air in the west behind the dry line helps to lift the moist air ahead of it, which will often trigger the thunderstorms and create the lift, our last main ingredient, that is not only needed for storms but for supercells, which spawn tornadoes. You can actually see on radar where the convection or these storms will blow up, where the dry air and cold air masses meet together.
The real power in the atmosphere has been along a front and what we call a dry line, an area where some dry air coming down the slopes of the Rockies encounters some Gulf of Mexico moist air and warmth, and a lot of that cold, dry air rides over the top and creates a very unstable situation.
So at this point, meteorologists and forecasters are becoming increasingly concerned that a severe weather outbreak is not just possible, but imminent. On the morning of April 26, 1991, a surface analysis taken from Norman, Oklahoma, showed a warm, juicy atmosphere, creating a perfect environment not just for tornadoes, but for long-track, violent tornadoes. An outbreak is imminent.
Very tropical Gulf air, and once again the air mass is coming together, and the situation ripe for tornadoes later on this afternoon.
Meteorologists are not only confident, but certain that this day likely will be a violent, dangerous day, and know that some kind of serious warning needs to be given to the public. And because the people of Kansas aren't afraid of regular tornadoes, something more dire needs to be conveyed. Just after noon on April 26, 1991, the National Severe Storms Forecast Center issues its second ever strong language tornado watch. The wording says this is a particularly dangerous situation with the possibility of very damaging tornadoes.
Right now, though, the situation fairly quiet in Wichita, but the weather will be unfolding very rapidly in the next couple of hours.
By early afternoon on April 26, the atmosphere was a powder keg ready to explode, and all that was left to do was wait.
Hey, good afternoon. You're watching the Weather Channel. Bill Keneally with you, and we continue to monitor severe weather now breaking out in parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, as well as on up into Nebraska.
The event kicks off in the mid to late afternoon, and storms begin to form in western and central Oklahoma, moving northeast. By 4:53 p.m., Cake TV in Wichita reports golf ball size hail and 65-mile-per-hour winds in Harper County, signifying how quickly these storms were able to start from nothing and really explode.
All the ingredients are coming together, and it looks like the situation will be such we're going to have a very volatile evening over much of Oklahoma as well as on into Kansas.
By 5:20 p.m., the first of many tornadoes touches down, the atmospheric cap breaks, and the event is fully underway.
We just had a report of a tornado near Conway Springs, just now handed to me. So with the hook echo, you see right here, this is the one that's producing the tornado near Conway Springs.
And once again, already now storms are beginning to break out, especially around the Salina, Kansas area.
That there is a high potential for more tornadoes.
At 5:49 p.m., the supercell that would ultimately become the Andover tornado is born, and the tornado first touches down just east of Clearwater, Kansas. Seeing this dangerous storm quickly grow stronger with prime atmospheric conditions, the NWS quickly issues a statement urging the people near Hayesville to get into their shelter immediately.
Our weather watcher in Clearwater has reported a funnel cloud. This storm is moving into the Hayesville, Derby, south part of Wichita area. There is a tornado reported there.
The sirens have been sounded. People at this time in the Wichita area should be seeking shelter. You should be moving to a place of safety. Indoors is your best bet, and if you have a basement, that is your best location.
Under the girders. Is that where we want to go? Yes. Underneath the girders. Hang on, you'll be fine. Hang on to the girders.
Up to this point, the tornado had largely done damage in fields, hit a home or two and a farm home, missing most populated areas, but by 6:09 p.m. it would hit its first town of Hayesville.
As of 6 o'clock, the tornado was reported by the Hayesville Police Department at 77th Street South and West Street, moving northeast at 30 miles per hour.
At this point, the tornado is around F3 strength and began to leave waste to homes and businesses in its path going through Hayesville.
Is that debris?
Dad, can you run home and get baby a ball? You can run home and get a ball.
Not right now.
And get in.
We can try for a little bit. It's a good time to turn inside, John.
Oh, God.
It was an indication of what was yet to come for Hayesville's neighbors. Its next victims had no idea that within minutes the walls would come crashing down.
After moving through Hayesville, causing damage to homes and businesses, Twister's next victim would be McConnell Air Force Base by 6:24 p.m., where the first violent damage would occur. Not only was this horrifying because there's a massive tornado coming for the people on the base, but because there was also a line of 10 B-1B bombers sitting like ducks in a row while this tornado is approaching. And the shocking part of this isn't that each of these bombers is worth $280 million, but that 2 of the 10 were actually armed with nuclear warheads at that time. Thankfully, the tornado narrowly missed all of those bombers, and even more thankfully, nobody died at the Air Force Base.
The twister jumped over the flight line here at McConnell and completely missed the complement of B-1 bombers and expensive F-16 fighter jets.
In around the McConnell Air Force Base area, and supposedly had done some damage. We'll continue to monitor that scene through the civil defense and continue to update you.
But the tornado did destroy 9 of the major facilities at the base, including their hospital, their library, elementary school, the officers club, and 102 housing units.
Cars were rocketed into the building and wrapped bumper to bumper around trees. Along with the hospital, the community center, the gym, the bank, the base exchange, and the credit union were destroyed.
So thankfully, the worst case scenario didn't unfold at the military base, and billions of dollars of high-tech military equipment were not destroyed. Simultaneously, as the tornado is moving through McConnell Air Force Base, meteorologists like Merrill Teller were tracking the path of the tornado and issuing warnings as it went through the metropolitan area. And this is despite the fact that the radar technology and warning systems at the time were a fraction of what they are today. In fact, the kind of equipment and radars that they were using in 1991 dated back to 1957. A radar even stopped working at a very critical part of this tornado, and they were still able to accurately convey information and issue warnings. After hitting the Air Force Base, the twister moves on to more suburban areas where it would reach F4 intensity, hitting an elementary school and claiming its first victims in the well-built subdivision of Greenwich Heights. After claiming 4 lives in the Greenwich Heights subdivision, the relentless tornado would continue to its final target, Andover. At this point, things were about to go from bad to worse as the tornado reaches its peak intensity on the final stretch into Andover. Meteorologists have been tracking this storm, working to warn each city as it plowed through Metro Wichita, and by 6:30 are ready to issue the official tornado warning for the city of Andover. But in typical horror, when it rains it pours fashion, the NWS issues the tornado warning for Andover, but the outdoor warning systems failed and the sirens did not go off.
Airport. This is Cincinnati weather. Hamilton picking up numerous reports. The funnel's dipping up and down.
Fortunately, police officers quickly realized that the outdoor siren had failed. Without much time to think and realizing the dire situation at hand, these police officers started sounding their own sirens, driving around the town to alert people, and actually drove through a lot of the neighborhoods, specifically the Golden Spur Mobile Home Park, to warn these residents of the impending tornado. And there's absolutely no question that this was a life-saving act because the trailer park had a storm shelter and many of these people, after getting the knock on their door, went safely into the storm shelter. By 6:43 p.m., just a few short minutes after the police warned the citizens, the city of Andover was hit. Unfortunately, this is at the point where the tornado had reached its peak F5 intensity, right as it went over the Golden Spur Mobile Home Park.
Barely able to make out the outline, but it is on the ground.
Right now, the monster tornado is flattening the Golden Spur Mobile Home Park in Andover.
Holy shit.
operating a mobile home park at 61st South and Ridge Road. And this is one of the best hook echoes I have ever seen.
At exactly 6:45 p.m., the Golden Spur Mobile Home Park takes a direct hit from the now F5 tornado. After moving through the trailer park and after nearly 90 minutes total on the ground, the Wichita-Andover tornado finally lifted at 7:15 p.m., leaving behind total destruction.
One huge storm-spawning tornadoes devastated the lives of people along a 43-mile path. Andover is one of the hardest hit areas.
When Renee Berggren finally came out of the shelter, she couldn't believe what she saw.
The tornado lifted to show absolute devastation in Andover.
You're okay. Thank God. You know where they are?
Let's go to Wichita, Kansas, see what's happening there. Dennis Smith live from Wichita. I understand there's some damage.
We've had some reports here of some damage around the McConnell Air Force Base. That's on the southeast side of Wichita.
The hardest hit area without a doubt was the Golden Spur neighborhood. It was a pretty populated area and also were trailers, so these were not well-built homes.
The Golden Spur Mobile Home Park looks like a landfill. Nearly 300 mobile homes are destroyed, wiped off the face of the earth. The search for bodies continued throughout the day.
WB0LTK. All right, you reading me all right?
W0BZ. The cellular phones never stopped ringing at the cusp. It's the sound of Andover residents worried about missing relatives.
It was hard to know just how bad and widespread the devastation was. People were missing, homes were completely swept away, and survivors were just busy trying to find a shred of their belongings among the wreckage. The rest of the night would be spent largely assessing the damage and performing search and rescue operations at the most devastated areas, namely the Golden Spur Mobile Home Park. This was the area with the most fatalities and where the tornado produced the most intense damage.
EMS crews ran every ambulance in the Wichita area for 3.5 hours. As soon as they dropped off one patient, they headed back for others.
Many people lost their cars. Some cars were tossed across the street, flipped over. Others had their windows smashed in. Between 400 and 500 mobile homes in this complex, and right now there are only 4 left standing.
Unfortunately, 22 people lost their lives. A lot of those fatalities occurred in a mobile home area. In fact, they're still trying to assess the damage.
After the primary search and rescue had been done, the Golden Spur Mobile Home Park was confirmed to have sustained F5 damage, and a total of 13 deaths happened in this neighborhood. Fortunately, most of the residents had sought shelter in the trailer park storm shelter. Over 200 people were huddled in there together as the storm passed over, and this is undoubtedly because those really brave police officers went and knocked door to door to make sure those people got to safety.
Anytime you have a tragedy like this occurring, you see moments where people really come together to help. We had something happen just a few moments ago. A lady walked into the studio and she gave a $200 check to the Red Cross for help of the victims.
In the aftermath of the tornado, the people of Andover and the greater Wichita area really stepped up to help the survivors and families of victims from this event.
My best friend's mom was here, and we rushed in there and got her out. I got a dog out. Another person was lying dead next to another guy that I lended a jacket to, another guy gave a hat to. I mean, what can you do?
Said my mother's in there, and I ran clear in there, and to look at this, there was nothing left. And to see 3 trailers gone, and the one next to hers, the walls and ceiling was gone, and then hers, the windows were blown in. There she was in the bathtub. That was just...
Was she injured at all?
No.
There's a lot of footage of the aftermath and cleanup, and I want to say how kind of shocked I was to watch a lot of this footage of these survivors. These people were so thankful to be alive, and the damage was kind of an afterthought to them.
We were lucky that we found our wedding album, and we found the baby's blankets that the grandparents had made. You know, the things that can't be replaced. I'm just thankful that we're all alive.
Even with the massive destruction in Hayesville, the folks here are thankful. Thankful the destruction wasn't even worse, and thankful that everyone survived.
Over 8,000 people from disaster relief and services came in. The Andover Methodist Church donated 3,000 pounds of clothing, and the Andover Primary School's gym was filled with rows of donated food. One of the volunteers from the Red Cross even joked that the Andover stores weren't stocked after all the people went and bought supplies for these people.
Early this morning, volunteers started arriving at Andover Middle School. Many of them are Mennonites and come prepared with shovels and tools.
Hundreds left homeless are finding food and shelter at places like the Faith Baptist Church in Andover. Many of the victims here lived in the Golden Spur Mobile Home Park.
We tend to think sometimes it always happens to someone else. We see these pictures on television, and of course it happens to someone else. And then when it happens to us...
Overall, the survey conducted after showed that the tornado reached peak winds of 260 miles per hour, and the width was 600 yards. It was on the ground for more than an hour and traveled just over 46 miles. In total, 17 people would lose their life in Kansas. 4 of those happened in the Greenwich Estates, and 13 of those in the Golden Spur Mobile Home Park. And just over 300 injuries occurred. And surveys estimated that the Andover tornado reached a peak of 268 mile per hour winds. All in all, the entire outbreak in the Central Plains killed 21 people, had 55 confirmed tornadoes, 32 of those reaching F2 strength, and 1 at F5, which is pretty incredible. The entire outbreak cost $250 million by 1991 standard, the McConnell Air Force Base accruing over $62 million of that. The silver lining in all of this is that there were a lot of survivors given the intensity of this storm and the population density that it did go through. I really think that although this was a worst case scenario, the fatalities were really mitigated as much as possible. We had warnings in advance by meteorologists, the strong language watches, media coverage, even down to the spotters on the ground alerting news outlets. We had the police knocking on doors. So I think this is an instance where the damage could have been really much worse. And even imagine the nuclear warheads being hit. I mean, I don't even know what kind of damage that would cause. This segment is discussing the potential negative impacts because of the sirens not going off in Andover. And I would love to know what you guys think about this, if it made a huge impact or not. I tend to think that the people in the mobile home park had a lot of time just because of the tornado, the way it moved all the way through southeast Wichita, the media coverage that was done on it, police sirens, and the door-to-door knocking. And this is a tricky one because it's impossible for us to know for sure. And it also just takes us back to the debate on the efficacy of sirens. But either way, I'm interested to know what you guys think. And ultimately, although we would love for everyone to take these events seriously, you can't force someone to shelter. You can't force someone to take tornado warnings seriously, even if you go and knock on their door and let them know that it's coming right for you. And if you remember the strong language tornado watch from earlier, despite the fact that this tornado was devastating, this kind of tornado watch was a large success in the meteorological and science community and social science communities because of a study conducted by the CDC after the event that found that these storm warnings prevented a staggering 82% of potential deaths from this storm. So the use of these strong language tornado watches actually worked really well for the public, and they would eventually become what we know today to be the PDS tornado watches. The Andover tornado just passed its 30th anniversary, and I am pleased to say that Andover has done more than rebuild. The population has almost quadrupled, and in 2020, the census showed that the Andover population is right over 20,000, up from its 4,000 in 1991. So what can we learn from an event like this? I think for most events of this magnitude, it's to take the warning seriously. Unlike a lot of the mainstream media that likes to portray these events as coming out of nowhere, the reality is that events are extremely well forecasted. The SPZ issues outlooks days in advance. We have tornado watches, we have PDS tornado watches, we have tornado warnings, we have severe thunderstorm warnings. So I think the takeaway is to always make sure you have a plan and have a backup plan in case that plan falls through. Yeah, so that was the Wichita Andover F5 tornado. I would love to hear your thoughts below. And once again, I would love it if you guys checked out the links in the description for ways you can donate to help the recent victims of the Kentucky and Tennessee tornadoes. So yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas holiday and New Year's. And I will see you guys very soon. Bye.